Over the years, South Africa has seen the killing of a range of people, from government whistleblowers to political aspirants, underworld kingpins and established business persons. But what are the driving forces in these assassination attempts? Criminologist at the Tshwane University of Technology's Head of Safety and Security Management, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu, tells us more about this. Prof, thank you so much for your time and thank you for joining us. You know, oftentimes when we hear about assassination attempts or targeted killings, it's often within the realm of politics or organized crime or sometimes even business. Rarely do you see it happening, you know, in the higher education sector. What should we be reading into this latest development?
Thank you and good morning to the viewers. The reading is that anyone can become an assassination target in South Africa. And now this has also reminded South Africa that VCs, for example, also require security details. We've been at universities where an appointment with a VC, you only have to talk to a PA. You can even access VC anyway. But now, this has just indicated that the history cuts across. And with institutions of higher learning, there's also politics. There's also squabbles. There are also power relation issues. There's also political conflicts. So that has also reflected that for as long as you want to uproot corruption within a particular institution, you are likely to be, you are vulnerable, in fact. And one more issue is that your leadership style, irrespective of whether you are at an institution of higher learning or a government, you are vulnerable for assassination.
Yeah, you know, mentioning the issue of corruption and graft, we know that that is a serious problem in South Africa's own context and landscape. I mean, we just had the final installment of the State Capture Commission of report detailing just how deep the levels of corruption really go when it comes to government. Is that an indication, perhaps, of the frequency with which we can anticipate assassination attempts or targeted killings, because we have such an issue with corruption in this country?
The corruption landscape in South Africa clearly creates a reservoir of violence and possibly assassination or targeted murders. We are in for big surprises. For a minute, there are strategies or discussions or policy development directed at corruption or uprooting corruption. We are likely to see assassinations. And the reason and the comfortability, we can always go back to the South African history and during the apartheid and the post-apartheid. And when we hear assassination, we don't even, as South Africans, we don't even worry much because that has been well planned. We don't even want to know who was responsible for that. Not long ago, famous DJ was killed. I don't think South Africa is even worried about who was responsible and that. We are so much comfortable with hits and so forth because over the years, we have been hearing about politically motivated and we don't worry much because you were in politics, it's given. And then it's what? Organized crime hits. You are within the judicial system, it's expected. Then the textile industry related as well, we are so much comfortable with that. But now, lately, anyone can be a target. And the other issue is what? For South Africa to know the magnitude statistically, challenge has been with the unavailability of data. Remember, there has been attempt to disaggregate some of the homicide statistics so that we can really understand the magnitude of assassination. That is why now we even have low conviction rate. As South Africa, we speculate mostly on how and what are the motives behind most assassinations. And the common pattern in South Africa is what? Bystanders have become victims. And we are so comfortable with it because now it was politically motivated. We are living in a political country and we have to accept the status quo.
Well, then, how should law enforcement, or how can law enforcement respond to this growing trend? The theme that I'm picking up on here from our conversation, Prof, is that anyone can be a target at this point. That, of course, affects, the number of resources, how capacitated the South African Police Service would be to be able to respond to the sheer size of this problem. If anyone can be a target, I mean, this speaks to the kidnappings issue that we recently had to deal with, where it seemed as though even ordinary South Africans were getting kidnapped, and it wasn't so much about the ransom anymore, or it wasn't the targeting of high-profile individuals or wealthy individuals, but the idea that anyone can be a target. How can law enforcement adequately respond to a problem of this magnitude?
The problem of this magnitude also talks about the inefficiency of the SAPS or the police service, because I don't think the planning, they are on par with the high level of corruption and the repercussion on the decision to deal with corruption. I don't think they are ready to even tackle corruption, because it's coupled with what? Police intimidation. When we're talking assassination, we're talking high-profile crime and intimidation. And remember, for them to deal with corruption, they must also start with their internal corruption. And as South African, we're dealing with political crime. Crime it's political in South Africa. There's lack of political will when it comes to crime prevention. So how do we expect our police service that is not even muscled enough to deal with corruption? What are we going to get? We're going to get nothing. We're just going to be analyzing more trends and patterns, because if you check, the assassinations have been growing in South Africa. We've been hearing of taxi violence in South Africa for quite some time. The only decline has been in 2020 or 2021 due to COVID-19. But now, due to the political space and transformation, we are going to have more hits coming. And we're so comfortable with it. So the police service or the justice system is not well equipped to deal with corruption, because they themselves have issues of corruption, internal corruption and internal politics.
Ordinary South Africans, how do they handle, incidents like this? I mean, we were just reporting on an alleged attempt on the life of outgoing Eskom CEO Andre Doreta. This seems to be becoming even more widespread. How should ordinary South Africans be responding to what perhaps could be a growing trend?
Now, this also impacts on the availability of illegal firearms. Ordinary South Africans feel the urge and the desire to have firearms. Then the sale of illegal firearms and availability. And this now also taps into South Africa's inability for firearm control. So people will now deploy multiple mechanisms in trying to protect themselves, and in doing so they might also break the law. And also this instills fear, and as it instills fear, there's high level of unsafety. And as much as you're feeling unsafe, you are likely to commit crime, because you are always tiptoeing around issues of safety and you don't even trust people. So we are going to have more violence due to fear. We're going to have more crime, while civilians or people or community or ordinary citizens are trying to protect themselves. And also, this also creates frustrations within our communities when they know that law enforcement is not well equipped to deal with issues of assassinations or targeted murder. We're going to have more incidents of mob justice or vigilant acts. So we're going to have South African crime rate is going to go higher due to frustration, due to inability to respond accordingly, and due to the status quo. Because as much as we'll be hearing about taxi-related violence or hits, bystanders are not safe. However, South Africa is so comfortable in allowing its people to utilize public transport where they know there's violence and where they don't even provide a security for our people.
Well, Professor, from the sound of it, it does seem like everything is all going to come to a head at some point. We are going to leave that conversation there for now. That's a criminologist and Tshwane University of Technology's Head of Safety and Security, Professor Kholofelo Rakubu, talking to us on that story.